Hello, adventurers of all shapes and sizes. My name is Chance. Welcome to my guide, and thank you so much for tuning in to what amounts to the third episode of our introduction series. So, in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at playing the game. Now, this is going to be super simplified, meant for beginners who haven't really played a lot of role playing games. There are a couple things in here that are unique to Pathfinder 2e, so I'd highly recommend just checking out the video for that reason alone. However, the vast majority of the stuff is the same as previous editions of Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder. Now, with all that out of the way, let's take a quick look at the different modes of play. So, Pathfinder defines there as being three major modes of play, and this is true for most TTRPGs. The first being exploration, which is essentially just exploring the world, uncovering mysteries, solving problems, and interacting with other characters. This is questing, essentially. This is where you're actively engaged in what's going on in a non-combat context, just trying to really just play out the adventure. The second mode of play is an encounter, or encounters, and that is fighting and engaging in the mechanics of combat. Now, there's a lot that goes into encounters. We'll be touching on it a little bit later on in this video, at least a simplified version, and there will be many episodes talking about the intricacies of combat later on, so stay tuned for those, but once again, this video is meant for beginners. And then the third mode of play is downtime. And downtime's a little bit complicated. So the examples that are provided are recovering from wounds, completing a task, planning a future conquest, pursuing a trait or passion. Characters can also use downtime to retrain, replacing one character choice with another to reflect their evolving priorities. There's also a lot of abilities, feats, and various other tasks that require downtime. So, in terms of what you need to know, consider downtime discretionary hours. Your character build, the choices you make regarding your character skill set will help provide you with some more options, and your game master might provide you with some of their own as well. So downtime's just what you're doing when you're not doing the other two, if that makes sense. Now, let's check out how you overcome situations. This is very prevalent in exploration, and this is quite simplified as well. We'll be having several episodes dedicated to just this concept in the near-ish future, so once again, just stay tuned. So, if there is a situation with an uncertain outcome, the GM or Game Master will call for a check. The PCs will then usually roll 1d20 and add a number based on the relevant ability. Typically, rolling higher is better. Now, most game masters specify that always rolling higher is better, but pro tip, there are going to be situations where you're going to want to roll either lower than the DC and intentionally fail, or perhaps roll between two. A good example I give is if you're trying to persuade a king to pursue a certain course of military actions in front of his advisors. If you roll too high on your check, I would make an argument that you're likely to make the king feel insignificant and just demasculated. And in doing so, he's not going to act favorably. But if you roll too poorly, he's just going to think you're an idiot. So you have to kind of aim for the sweet spot. Those are my favorite kind of rolls, and I really like using them on more experienced players because it kind of shakes the game up a little bit, but that's just my pro tip. So the second part, the Game Master will compare the number rolled to a target number, referred to as a difficulty class, or a DC, as almost everyone calls it, and determine an outcome. Results equal or greater to the DC are a success, and results less than the DC are a failure, which is pretty cool. You can also do a critical success or a critical failure, and this is a rule that's, for the most part, unique to Pathfinder 2e. When you roll 10 above a DC, or roll a 20 on your d20, so max, right? Then it's a critical success. And usually that means you get some kind of bonus in addition to whatever you were competing for. So if you were making a check to swim across the river, and usually you don't even be able to get halfway across, if you succeed, you roll and you get a critical success, and now you can make it all the way across. Usually it's something like that, but it's very much up to the game master's discretion, so it's their call. And by contrast, you can also get a critical failure. So you either fail the DC by 10 or roll a 1 on your d20. So in using the same kind of water swimming through a river example, if you roll a 1, that current's going to carry you away. Or it could. Once again, it depends on the game master and how they're going to rule it, right? So as a player, all you really need to know, your game master will call for a check in relation to a skill or ability you possess. You roll your d20, add the relevant number. Typically, you want to beat the DC, although you do not know what it is, so all you need to do is just tell the GM what number it totals out to be, and then they'll tell you whether or not you pass, fail, or what happens afterwards. So, pretty cool stuff. Now, let's take a quick look at some encounters here. This is uber simplified, but it's just to get you used to the formatting of what an encounter is. So, combat in Pathfinder 2e is broken up into rounds, with a new round starting after each creature takes a turn. So within one round, everyone takes a turn, and at the end of the last person's turn, the round restarts. Cool? Cool. When the encounter begins, the Game Master will call for initiative, which is typically rolling your perception, but it depends on circumstances. There's a whole section covering just initiative and the different ways it can play out. Typically, though, the person who scores the highest goes first. On your turn, you can kind of do whatever based off of what you've picked for your character, but simplified, you get 3 actions, and you can use 1 reaction in the round. Reactions can be taken on anyone's turn. Ultimately, it comes down to what abilities you have, but what you need to know, on your turn you can move and use up to 3 actions, and then within the round you have 1 reaction you can spend, so long as the ability and trigger is fine. Now, once again, this is uber simplified. There's a ton that goes into combat, and we'll ultimately be covering those in later videos. In terms of where we're going after this one, we have a just quick key term video to do, and then we'll be getting into character creation pretty soon after that. I know a lot of people have been waiting for that, so I'm really looking forward to it. That being said, let me know what you guys think of the video, what you think of the series in general. I always appreciate feedback, so feel free to keep me in the loop. And that being said, I hope you all have a great day, and as always, happy adventuring.